President Bush is trying to win over European leaders during his transatlantic trip. For an early indicator of whether or not his mission to improve frayed diplomatic ties is successful, you might want to take a closer look at those posing for the camera. Joining us now to talk about the messages sent by body language and protocol, Fox News foreign affairs analyst and former ambassador to Morocco, Mark Ginsburg, along with former White House social secretary and former assistant chief of protocol, Gahl Hodges Burt. Thank you both for joining us.
Good morning.
Good to be here. Gahl Hodges Burt, we've noticed that President Bush is on a first-name basis with several of these leaders. He was referring to French President Jacques Chirac as Jacques. He's referring to the NATO Secretary General as Jaap, when his name is Jaap de Hoop Scheffer. He doesn't always call, Tony Blair, for example, the British Prime Minister, Tony. How does he decide when to go on that basis, and what signal is it meant to send?
Well, it does send a signal, and I guess he probably decides on what he's comfortable with. But to call someone Tony in the setting of a formal meeting probably isn't quite as appropriate as Jacques or another name. Tony seems to be more of a nickname, but it does send a signal. But clearly, he's probably the most comfortable with Tony Blair.
But he doesn't call. Okay, let's go on to Ambassador Mark Ginsburg. The same question. What is that? What kind of relationship is he trying to build there?
Well, there's no doubt that the president's engaged in a very effective fence-mending trip to Europe. He clearly is reaching out to, shall we say, go beyond the policy issues to develop a more personal relationship with the European Union leaders. And most importantly, the president has this proclivity for giving nicknames to friends and acquaintances that he meets along the way, and perhaps he's even giving a few nicknames here and there personally to some of these leaders in their private meetings. I wouldn't want to venture what he's calling Chancellor Schroeder these days, but clearly there's other more friendly relations that he's developed. And most importantly, besides the familiarity and the normal Texan folksiness that the president brings to the table, you also have a serious effort on the part of the leaders from Europe to get to know the president personally better as well.
Right. Back to Gahl Hodges Burt. We mentioned body language. It's not just what they're saying. It's whether they're looking each other in the eye. It's whether they're leaning in when they speak with each other. How important are these nonverbal signals?
Well, they're very important, and nothing replaces a one-on-one, face-to-face meeting that two leaders could have, or a group of leaders. I know in the Reagan administration, Ronald Reagan became extremely close to the leaders that were members of the G8 then. And, the way you personally engage a foreign leader means everything. I remember when he was being crucified here in this country for going to Bitburg, and this is Ronald Reagan, and he talked to Helmut Kohl on the phone, and every single one of Ronald Reagan's advisors were telling him not to go to Bitburg. And Kohl called him on the phone, and he said, "Helmut, I gave you my word, I'll be there." And that relationship was sealed in concrete after that. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of thing that can only happen between two leaders. And President Bush has a lot, as Mark said, a lot of fence mending to do.
Yeah. And let's go back to Ambassador Ginsburg just very briefly. There's a lot of advance work that goes into this. Advance teams kind of go out, smooth the way, try to plan some spontaneous moments off camera for the kind of bonding that Ms. Burt was just referring to. How important is that? Not just what we see on camera, but the advanced planning and those impromptu moments.
Oh, this advance work has been going on for months. You can imagine setting the sights for where the meetings are, to the menus, to what the first ladies are doing, what they're going to be saying, scripting the meetings, scripting all of the cavalcade and motorcades and the meetings of individuals as well as the aides. This is extraordinarily meticulous planning. Gahl was one of the chiefs of protocol at the State Department, and I happened to work in protocol at the State Department briefly during the Carter administration. We would spend months meticulously planning every move of the president and the Secretary of State in these meetings to make sure that everything was scripted well enough, not only for the cameras, but also to make sure that in the personal moments, these so-called set-aside meetings, there was enormous opportunity for the leaders to bond with each other.
All right, and we see some of that perhaps happening during this trip. Ambassador
so.
Mark Ginsburg, Gahl Hodges Burt, thank you both.
Sure.